In this video, I'm going to show you how to upgrade AI agents so they can do a lot more advanced tasks, whether you're using it in content creation or any form of automation in your business. I'm going to be building this in N8N. There's a link below this video. Before we build it, though, I just want to show you exactly what it does so you can understand how you can really upgrade your AI agents to do a lot more cool things now. As you can see on the screen, I have an AI agent. I'm going to connect this to a chat so I can ask it specific questions. But this is where it gets really interesting. You'll notice here I've connected off this agent a second agent. So N8N now allows you to have an agent tool connected to an agent. So you can farm out particular tasks to a whole other agent, get it to do that task, package up the result, and send it back to the original agent. The reason this is so handy is, one, you don't have to overload one agent with so many different things. You can compartmentalize tasks that agents can do and then just send back what you need, not bloat out the whole context window with irrelevant stuff that this agent doesn't need. Because what you have to understand when you're doing these automations is you have to be super careful with how much information is sent to one particular LLM. If you overload it, what happens is the quality just starts to take a total nosedive. So you need to be really careful. One way to do it is to farm out certain tasks and only get back what you need. I did a recent video on that, on how to get high quality responses from LLM, so I encourage you to go to my channel and watch the previous couple of videos around that. But what we can do here is we can actually attach another tool to this agent. So this agent can actually, in this example, is going to go to x.com. It's going to scrape particular profiles. So in a previous video, I actually showed you how to go and get, the video is called Content Gold. If you look at my channel, you'll see it. I showed you how you can actually use an API call to go to Twitter or x.com, and you can scrape certain profiles to get latest updates and news. So we can get this task attached to this agent. This agent can manage and package that particular task and send the result back to this agent, which gets only what it needs in a nice clean format. The other cool thing about this, which I'll show you, is we can also now attach a model selector. So depending on what the task is, it may require a different model. Some models are better at different things, like calculations. ChatGPT 4.1 is not super great at doing calculations. So if this particular task that's coming in a part of your workflow requires more calculations, then you may not want to use ChatGPT's models for this. You might want to use Google Gemini or Claude. And for a writing type of tool, you may want to just stick to 4.1. And again, there's nuance in that as well. If you want a simple writing task that you're doing, you don't have to use the more expensive models. You can use a more simple model. So we can now give rules in here about which model to use and when. So the great thing about this, as you're building more complex automations, you can build smart logic into this and say, we don't need to use this model for this task. It's simple. So you can build rules in, and this way now we're managing the costs of doing different parts of our automation. That's what I like about the model selector here. So I'll show you how that works as well. So let's just say I want to get the latest information about cryptocurrency that's trending on x.com. I can build a simple automation here and get it to go back. This agent will get the task and farm that out and only bring back to this agent what it needed. Now you can adapt this to whatever use case you have if you're building content or any type of automation that requires an AI agent. So let me just do a quick example here. I'll open the chat, which I just practiced before, but I'll just copy the previous one that I did. And I'm just going to say, can you give me the latest AI news? So I'm going to just put that into the chat like this, and I'm going to click like that. I'll hide that out of the way. So this chat bot AI agent's got that task. It's chosen this model for it, and then it's now farming out this task to a whole other agent. This agent is now using Grok's API call in here, or X's API call in here, to go and scrape X for certain profiles, get this latest news back. It's now tidying this up and sending it back to this agent via this model here, and then the task is done. So if we open up our chat and just see what it said to us, we can see down here, which I'll zoom into, here's the latest news that came back from Twitter on this particular topic. And it's in a nice, clean text markdown format, which makes it really easy for us to use. So this is where it's really handy to be able to farm out certain tasks so this agent doesn't have to do everything. It's just getting back a nice, clean summary that it needed for this particular task that it was asked to do. So you can do a lot of different things with this. This agent could be responsible for sending out emails. It could be responsible for checking calendar updates. There's a lot of different things that it could do. Let me show you now how to actually build this and put it together. It's really not that difficult to do. You need an account over at OpenAI, and you'll need an API account also at x.ai, which I'll walk you through. So the first thing we do is set up a trigger for our AI agent. So we go over here and it's just a chat trigger is what we're using, the chat trigger. Then we set up the agent itself. So I just go here and put AI agent like this, choose the AI agent, not the tool, the AI agent. The tool is what we're going to use down here. So those are the two that we are going to use just so you can see where they are. Once the agent's up, all I have to do in here is set this user prompt to the trigger, which is just the chat trigger that's coming in here like this. So that's going to get the message that comes in. In the system below here, this is where you can train it. This is completely dependent on what you're actually doing. So what I said in here is when you get a message that comes in asking about the latest crypto news, then what it needs to do, I give it a step-by-step instructions. You need to call the tool, the second agent that you've got, and you need to give it the instructions of finding the latest information from these particular usernames. Now, you could dynamically map these in. This is just hard-coded in here or hard-written in here, but obviously when you're doing this on a larger workflow, you would dynamically map whatever users that you want to map in. They don't have to be written in at this. I'm just using this as an example. So I'm saying get the latest information from these particular user handles over at Twitter. And then it's going to send that message to the second agent. And then it's told when you get that information back from the second agent, that's your output in the chat module reply. So this is all this is simply doing. You've got an input, farm that out to the second agent. So the way that it does this is on the tools attached here, what I'm going to do is attach an AI agent tool. Now, this AI agent tool then has its own prompt telling it how to use its tool. So there's tools attached to tools. And this is where you can do incredible things with these automations. So what we tell it here in the system prompt is simply, again, a step-by-step process. How do you achieve what it is that you're meant to achieve? So it says your job is to fetch and summarize the latest crypto news from X. I'm not going to read through this all. You can have a go and play around with it when I give you this below the video. But essentially, it's telling it how to do the API call. This is how X wants the API call to be set up. And the dynamic part about it is in the content. This is where it's actually dynamically mapping in what it got from the agent. So the first agent will give it the query. The second agent realizes that, oh, that was what I would have got from my user input from the first agent. So this is the query that it's going off to query Twitter to find the latest posts. You can play around with the dates. If you just want like the last 7 days, you could do that. These parameters can be dialed up and down depending on what you're doing. In this example, I'm just doing a Twitter or X where I'm scraping X with that tool. You could do this for any task. It doesn't matter what the tool is. This is just an example. And I'm telling it to use the latest Grok 3 model. So that's how we set up the requests that tool does. And then it's saying when you get the response back, you need to clean it up and tidy it up in a format to send back to the first agent. We don't want it just dumping the whole response back. We want it to do some processing and workload to clean it and prepare it to send back to that first agent. That's the whole point here, is that one agent can take a lot of the workload off the second agent. And then we're telling it to how to send that workload back in a nice clean format called news block like that. So we have a prompt in the second agent. So the second agent then has a tool attached here and a certain structure that we want it to do. So we attach a model onto this. So you'll need an account at OpenAI to use these models. So if I open OpenAI here, you need to have an account set up and you need to enter your API credentials. So you need to go new credentials and you need to go to OpenAI and get an API key. Once you've got that, you save that in there and then you'll be able to connect to OpenAI and choose the models to run this AI agent. I won't walk you through how to do that right now, but just get an account at OpenAI. Once you've signed up, go to the API section and create an API key and save it and put it in there. So once you've done that, choose the model to run it. This one we're going to use GPT 4.1. So now that we've got the brain attached to the second agent, we're going to tell it we want a specific structure that we want it to send back. So the way we add this structure on is we go to AI agent and we slide this require specific output format over till it's green. And then what we do is we attach this structure. And the way you attach a structure is you just go output structure, structured output parser like that. Once this is attached here to the output parser, we just give it a simple JSON format saying output a text string called newsblock. And then it will do exactly that. And the reason we want to control that output is we want to know exactly how it's sending this output back up to this agent. So it gets a nice clean structure to work with. And then we want to do is add another tool, which is an HTTP request model. So to do this, we just go HTTP request like that, and it's a tool that we add on. If I open this up, you need to get an account over at XAI. So you go to xai.com, x.ai, and you need to get an API key over there. It's the same thing that we just did before when we looked at OpenAI, but now we need an account at x.ai. And once you've got an account there, you need to come and connect your credentials again. So I've already set this up, but once you've got your account, they're going to give you an API key as well. So in here, you would go create new credentials in here, and you need to get the credentials to connect your XAI account in here and authenticate this step. So I'm not going to walk through in this video exactly how to do that because it's pretty straightforward. You just head over to XAI and you get your credentials to authenticate this step so you can connect the two services together. Once you've connected it, you need to have this authentication type set to header auth, and then you just choose here the account you've just set up, which you just name it something like xgrok or whatever you want to call it. But you need to get the credentials connected. And then in the URL field, you just leave this exactly as I've got it. Everything else can stay the same once you've got your own API key. Then you click the send bodies over to JSON using JSON below. But what we do down here is really quite easy. We just click, there's a button here which will say defined automatically by the model. So what it's saying is the model will fill out the JSON for us in the way that X wants this sent over. So you don't have to do anything there. You just leave the model to do it. And that's all you have to do. So the way the model does that is in the actual model, we showed the model here how to do it. So the model knows that structure. That's why we can, when we attach a tool, we can say, let model decide, because we already taught the model how to do it. And the model is going to update automatically that context field, which is the query that we're sending to X. We want to know what is it, X is going to want to know, well, what are you actually looking for? So it needs to fill out this automatically. And the model knows how to do it because we taught the model up here. When you get a query coming in from this agent, that is the query that you need to create to send down here. So it sort of daisy chains along, and that request eventually will end up being sent here by this model in the JSON here. Once we do that, that model is then going to run X, and X is going to go and scrape those accounts. And you can see here, this is all the content that is pulled back from doing that scrape. It's got a lot of content that is pulled back. So we don't just want to dump that response fully back to the original agent, because it just, again, it creates way too much noise and mess for that agent to deal with. So we can process that before we send it back, and we can do that by what we do in this prompt. And you can play around with this and tell it exactly what you want to extract and what you want to do and what you want to send back. And that's just up to you, depending completely on what the automation is that you're doing. So I just told it to summarize it and clean it up and then send it back in a nice, compact, cleaned up format for what I'm exactly looking for. So when I do that, that then gets sent back to this agent, and that's how this agent up here is able to reply to this chat with a nice cleaned up news block from the scrapes it found over at x.com. And then we can use that in our automations in whatever way we want. So I'm just going to hide that again. And then over on here, it chooses the correct model to select. Now, the way we do that is we can do different dynamic settings. We can say in the input that came in this case, it was a chat input. We're saying in this chat input, we can now create rules. I did a really simple one here, and I just said it's a string if it can, string that contains or does not contain, you can do whatever you like, any words that you like. I just did, can you give me the latest crypto AI news? Now, I could have just done this, AI news. That's, I could have just done that. If it contains anything that's asking about AI news, then I'm saying to it that I want it to choose model 1. Now, if I wanted it to choose model 2, I could add a different rule here and say, I could take the same chat trigger input, and I can just say down here, model 2. So I might say, well, when the chat input, I could say something different. Instead of is equal to, I'm going to say string, and I can say it contains, and this might be something completely different. This might be, let's just put finance or something different. You play around with it. It completely depends on what you're doing. The point is, when that input, it's going to read that input and it's going to look for these triggers and know which model to choose, model 1 or model 2. You have to define these depending on what's coming in and which model you'd want to use. But that's how the model can tell which should I use, which model is best for the job. And that's dependent on what's coming in and the parameters that we set up in here. So now you can see you can really upgrade your AI agents by choosing specific models for specific tasks. And we can also farm out specific tasks down here, which again have their own tools attached. And you can do more of these. I could duplicate this and do it again for a completely different task. I could have another agent connected over here. So I can have another AI agent here. I could have AI agent tool over here. And I could repeat that model of that over here. I'd obviously add in all the models, but this might have a different task. This might be something where I'm asking it to go to Gmail or something, not memory, sorry. I could ask it might be sending out an email. So I could say I need it to go over and send an email out here. And you can have different tasks depending on what's coming in and the logic that you build into the agent here. So that's a really cool upgrade that you can do to your AI agents that N8N has most recently brought out. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a huge favor and leave me a comment below. Let me know what other videos you would like me to create. People in the last video I did asked for a certain video and I did it. So if you want any other particular videos, just let me know because it really helps me know what sort of content you guys are looking for. All right, I'll see you in the next video.